get a motion?
So moved.
Motion by member Smith, second?
Second.
Second by member Nolenberg. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we reconvene at 7:10. Tonight's meeting is being digitally recorded. And number 8 is the Pledge of Allegiance, led by member Nolenberg.
Please stand, face the flag. Put your hands over your right, over your heart, and begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Announcement of actions taken in closed session. There were no actions taken tonight. Move on to item 10, which is a special recognition. And our first one is recognition of the Temple City Youth Council.
Good evening. My name is Zoe Sue. I'm currently a senior at Temple City High School. Thank you so much for having us tonight. I have been on the youth committee for 3 years now, and I was part of the working group for the pedestrian and traffic safety objective, which is in line with council's strategic goal of public safety and quality of life. So we started this traffic safety objective because 2 students at Temple City High School were hit by a car. One was just a pedestrian and another was a biker. So we passed out hundreds of surveys at Lights on Temple City event to get input about traffic safety issues that other citizens were experiencing. The week after of December of 2017, we created a quality of life topic discussion regarding traffic safety to get more input from Temple City citizens about traffic safety issues. Then, with all the information we gathered, we presented to the Transportation and Public Safety Commission, and they directed us to work with transit traffic safety engineers, and we had the opportunity to conduct a traffic safety study and a traffic count with them at the corner of Lemon and Tremont Avenue. After all the data was collected, we went back to the Transportation and Public Safety Commission, where they gave the recommendations to the City Council. The City Council approved the improvements, and they allocated $44,000 to relocating the crosswalk, adding shark teeth lines and yield signs so students can cross safely. Thank you, and I'd like the rest of Youth Committee to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Kelly, and I've been on Youth Committee for 2 years.
Hi, I'm Amanda, and I've also been on the committee for 2 years.
Hi, I'm Sydney, and this is my first year on the committee.
Hi, I'm Vaughn. I'm a junior, and this is my first year on the youth committee. And I would like to talk about our next upcoming event at the Chameleon Festival, where we are going to have a booth where we'll be promoting our 3 objectives for this year. And our first objective is promoting a healthier lifestyle, where we'll be working with the American Lung Association to discourage the use of electronic cigarettes, and we'll be focusing on working with younger kids, like elementary school age. And for our second objective, we are promoting voter registration. So we'll be targeting older high school students to pre-register and register to vote. And for our third objective, we are going to be talking about the U.S. Census. And we're going to encourage participation in the census. And the reason for that is because participation in the census, it determines how much money our city is allocated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. On behalf of the district, we'd like to commend you for all the good work you did, and especially the work you did in helping making the Temple City High School a safer place for our students. We have some certificates of recognition for you. Zoe, Sydney, Juan, Kelly, and Amanda. And then I think you have other members that aren't here tonight, so could you take these and give them to them also? And I'm sure Jerry would like to get a picture.
Sure.
So, do you want to come up here in front? And Peggy, how about if we get you and Jillian in a picture too, because you're their advisors, and we also have our Mayor Pro Tem, Tom Chavez. Tom?
There you go. That sounds good. No funny faces, Jody? That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Our future leaders are in really good hands. Thank you for coming. Next, we're going to have a presentation by the, I assume this is Temple City High School robotics team, right? Okay, great.
Make sure that doesn't see that.
While we're waiting, I just wanted to mention to everyone in the audience, I don't think the student mentioned it, but the work at Temple City High School is supposed to be done by the end of June. So we can look forward to having that for the next school year. Ready? Okay, great. Take it away.
Alrighty, so I'm Elias Pergiley, the advisor for the Tcusd High School robotics team. I'd like to say hello to everybody, and I don't want to talk very much, so I'm going to pass it over to all of the students.
Mr. Pergiley. Good evening, Board of Education. We're at the Tcusd City High School robotics team, and my name is Sherman. This is Karen, Catherine, Mary, Kevin, Simon, Yasindu, and Athena. We are a team of 21 members, and 8 of us are here to present our achievements and in hopes to share, spread students throughout the community. So we were founded in 2015, it's our 5th year competing in the First Tech Challenge, which is under the first organization. We would like to thank our mentors, Mr. Pergiley and Mr. Dickey, for all their hard work and their guidance, and allowing us to use their guidance and allowing us to use the resources such as the CNC, laser cutter, and 3D printer. Without their help, we wouldn't be who we are here today.
So each year, FTC provides a new game each season. So this season's game, Sky Stone, involves collecting a stone or that Lego-looking block there, and collecting them and stacking them on the platform. There are other objectives to complete for teams to earn points. However, the mechanisms we'll be talking about today mainly deal with to accomplish that main objective.
So the robot that we have brought here today, we created using the design process, which begins with a simple question of how do we accomplish our goals? So to do this, we first think of a strategy, and then we do research on the various mechanisms, such as the lift mechanism and the drive train. After we perform research on the various possibilities and mechanisms, we pick ones that we see the most promise in, and then we create sketches of these. which are then utilized to make 3D models using SolidWorks, which is a computer-aided design program. You can see the models that we have made for a slightly older version of this robot. And by creating these 3D models, we are able to better visualize how the various mechanisms fit together and allow us to fix any glaring problems that may arise in this process, which essentially reduces work later on. After we create these 3D models, we then move on to actually building the robot, starting with prototypes, which utilizes cheap materials such as cardboard, wooden dowels, and tape. And that lets us further investigate the various movements of the mechanisms found on the robot. And this allows us to further fix any problems that may arise and essentially just improve the robot overall. After creating these prototypes, we then actually build the robot with the metal parts. We mount electronics onto it, and most of the time we also fabricate custom parts using a laser cutter or a 3D printer, since some of the parts that are on this robot can be found online and are very specific for certain movements or actions that we need to perform. Afterwards, we load a simple program onto the robot, which allows us to test it in an environment that's much more similar to the competition. And this allows us to continue to fix problems that may arise, which this essentially allows us to increase the efficiency and the effectiveness of the robot during competition. This process is repeated over and over to create various versions or iterations of the robot, which you can see here, starting with the first meet 0 all the way to the most recent meet 3. We have taken our initial designs and we have compacted it and made it much more efficient, and which is reflected in our scores throughout these various meets. Now we would like to talk about the major components and mechanisms found on the robot.
So for the robot we have here today, its chassis and drivetrain are designed and used for the upcoming ILT competition. Its chassis is built to ensure the foundation of the robot is perfectly balanced and stable enough to add features to the functionality. We make strong chassis to accommodate all parts of the robot. We use high-speed motor to make robots smoother and provide better control during the driver's control period in FTC competition. Magnum wheels are used to improve our robot's mobility, accuracy, and speed for efficiency.
So obviously one of the most crucial parts of our entire robot are the grabbers, because it's what allows us to grab the stone out of the block. So as compared to many of the other teams in the league, they often use either a claw-like mechanism or a rolling intake. However, what's really special about our mechanism is that we actually have a combination of both. And because of that, it's not only very unique, but it's also very simple and effective because it allows for a lot of leniency in case that there are possible errors that still arise while we are playing during our matches. Or it also helps us get the block in the most ideal position for stacking. So for all of these reasons, these grabbers are a very important part of our robot, and they have helped us greatly in our matches.
So in order to lift our blocks on top of our tower, which is the main task, we use a 4-stage cascading linear slide as our lifting mechanism, which is attached to the drivers in the front, as you can see. And these combined is basically the most essential part of our robot, and it's used to complete the task. Some of the major problems that we had encountered during our building process was, first of all, finding the right vendors to buy our parts, because we cannot physically fabricate these parts. We need to find the right vendors. And in addition to that, we also have a problem with the string on our linear slide jumping the pulley. And in order to fix that problem, we use coding to manipulate the motors. Thank you.
Quickly to jump in, the grabbers in the lift system that they were talking about, all of them combine up and we can lift the whole system up like this. So this is the whole creation. That's one of the most important features of our whole robot.
For robots movement, we use Java programming to code the movement of a robot. There are 2 phases of the competition, which are autonomous and telegraph. Autonomous is one of the most important phases of the game, which is where the robot runs without driver input and is controlled through a series of sensors and cameras. In the tournament, we utilize Roadrunner to easily and precisely navigate the field. We also utilize OpenCV to detect stones, the main scoring element of our game. During teleoff phase, the driver controlled the movement of mechanisms of the robot. During teleoff, due to limitations in the software to prevent damage to our mechanism.
As an overall robotics team part of FIRST, our main goal is to give back to the community and inspire younger students to pursue fields in STEM. And some of the outreaches we go to our local elementary schools, as well as schools like Aurora Vista Elementary, or we go to larger events like the TLA Makers Fair or the Black College Expo. From this, we can try to inspire younger generations to keep pursuing a field of STEM and continue this legacy of robotics and science. But if we're, like, several of us have actually been able to come this far because you guys have supported us for so long, since elementary school. But if you go with the, but currently we are slowly running out of funding, and because of that, we are put at a disadvantage compared to our other competitors. It's like schools like La Cañada and San Marino. But this is how we are right now, and we will talk a little bit more about that.
So, like Athena had previously mentioned, we are severely lacking funding. So in the previous years, our mentors were given a small stipend as compensation for their help and their mentorship. However, this year the budget has been cut significantly, which has become a very large issue, and it's a similar issue that we've seen throughout our school districts. Many other STEM teams have already disbanded due to a lack of proper funding. And the remaining ones are suffering greatly. For example, not only our robotics team are suffering from lack of funding, but also our Science Olympiad team as well. And this is why we are requesting for funding. We believe that STEM has and can open up new and interesting pathways for our students. And it has not only changed lives, but it has also saved lives. And it is, in fact, through STEM how we all found our own passions. And it is absolutely crucial that we truly acknowledge the significance of STEM and help push our STEM teams to even greater success. And in order to do that, funding is necessary. And so for the betterment of not only our STEM education, but those of the younger students in all of the elementary schools that we visited, or the middle schools, or any other schools that we visited in our community, we, the robotics team, request for further funding. Funding will help push us even farther, complete more of our goals, and prove to these kids that they too can have this opportunity when they enter 7th grade, when they can join FTC, or when they even join high school, when they can go to even farther or harder competitions like FRC. And if you have any questions regarding funding, we are more than happy to answer them.
I have a question regarding funding. And how much? How much are you looking for?
So each robot that we build costs around $3,000, so therefore the absolute minimum is $3,000. However, in order to host or attend outreaches or expositions and fairs like the DTLA Fair or any further expositions, we need much more than that. Rather than just building simple and small robots that can only drive back and forth with this very few parts that we have left, something that we've been doing for every single past outreach and exposition and fair, more funding means that we can build more engaging robots. Robots that other children can play with. They can learn how to build a lift. They can learn how what the design process means. It's something that can engage with people. And in order to do that, we need more money. So for now, the absolute minimum would be $3,000, but we can further talk about extra money.
So the rule of thumb is, I'm quite familiar with the FIRST organization, starting with the First Lego League Junior for first graders up to 4th grade, and the First Lego League 4th grade up to 8th grade. FTC is what you have. FTC rule of thumb, and this was 5 years ago. It's about $10,000, $3,000 minimum for the robot, the hardware. But there's the competition, there's all sorts of fees, that you have to, even the registration to compete, that's a fee. So rule of thumb is about $10,000. For the FRC, I think you mentioned earlier, which other districts have, like La Cañada, San Marino, easily 100,000. I don't know if we have an FRC. It would be great if we have it. Are you running this as a club, or is this somebody mentioned Java earlier? Is this part of the computer science?
It's sort of a club, but we come together as sort of like a group of people who are interested in this robotics field.
Currently, we're technically an unofficial club because we do not have an advisor, and our advisor position does not remain stated. So we work out of our own spaces. Like we work out of Sherman's house, out of another member's Clement's house. We're not even allowed to use the room at school that's supposedly designated for us.
So, Athena, question for you. You show some wonderful slides and pictures about engagement with the elementary sites. Is there a pathway from elementary? Do we still have a first level league at London and at the elementary sites?
Not anymore.
Emperor recently, last year I know they had a robotics club. I recently emailed the secretary, they said they no longer have it.
And Oak had disbanded theirs last year because their advisor had left and retired. Also due to funding, like, he retired, so we no longer have a team.
What's the backup of that robot?
With the backup?
Yeah, when you're in a contest and that doesn't work.
So usually if our robot ends up not working, we can either get penalties for it, but we don't have the backup.
Because this is all the parts that we have. We can't afford any other parts more than
Generally, if the robot breaks during competition, what we do is we run back to our kit and then we try to solve the problem as fast as possible with whatever means we have. And if we can't fix the mechanism that's broken, we just use it.
I have a geek question for you. The Java piece caught my attention. What is the CPU they use? Is it a Adreno board or a Raspberry Pi?
So the whole robot is powered through a phone. It's just one phone that's connected to the robot. So our programmers use code it on his computer and then load it into the phone, which is then plugged into the robot. And then all the code is then directed into the control hubs, which are on the robot right here, which divert all the power to all the code. So it's all powered through one phone.
That's not entirely true, it's run off. One phone is actually stores the software for the robot to run. The other phone is hooked up to the robot.
Yes, we have it over there.
So that they can wirelessly communicate.
I just wanted to get a clarification. So were you guys a club last year?
Yes, technically we were still a club and we still had our room. We were working out of it. But this year, for some reason, it was suddenly dropped and we had to find other means to make what we can do.
Well, I commend you for keeping with it, and we'll see what we can do for you, okay?
Thank you.
Are you gonna give us a demonstration?
Would you like one?
Yes.
Try.
Are there other members of the club that are here also, or are you?
We have a total of around 21 members.
Wow.
And just that includes also like the business part, but like there are other members who are also part of hardware or design or the software as well.
Who's the president of your club?
Captain is Sherman.
Okay, so
Who's the advisor? Are you Mr.
I am the kind of advisor.
Unofficial advisor.
Unofficial advisor.
I'll make an appointment with you.
So one idea is that you could all be presidents or captains in different fields. Captain of engineering, captain of finance, and when you apply for colleges, it really helps.
Yes, we actually have something kind of similar. So I am the design lead, so basically I handle
I'm so sorry. If we can turn around and show you our shirts, you can actually see all our names and
essentially they're like the divisions of the team. So I'm the design lead and I essentially lead creating the 3D models and essentially designing most of the mechanisms of the robot. Clement is the hardware lead and he heads essentially building the actual robot, the physical robot. Sherman as the captain kind of oversees all of that, and then since he also has the most experience in the team, he also provides like guidance or essentially whenever we usually pitch ideas to him, and if he sees any burning issues with it, or if he has ideas of his own, he kind of presents that as a team. Collaborate.
Okay, all right, you ready?
Wait, Sherman.
So while they move it to the center. I do want to gloat about them a little bit because they won't mention it. But we are currently in first place in the league. They've been doing a rock star job, and as much as I want to say that I'm always right, I pitched like 20 ideas to them this year, and they've gone a completely different direction. And they're still doing really well. So they're really a hugely independent team, and they have really hit it out of the park this year. So, Does anyone else have any questions for?
How many participate in the actual robot?
You want to participate?
No,
How many?
I mean, all of you are.
How many participate in the building of the robot, or?
Just, and when it's used in the game.
When it's used, we have 2 drivers and 1 coach, because the game allows for 2 drivers, 1 coach, and on the Alliance teams, a human element, so we have a human player come in and put down one of the blocks in the field when they permit. But for the most part, 2 people will drive. 1 person will control the driving aspect, another person will control the intake.
Okay. What do you do with the wheels?
The wheels are used for a different area. If we can bring that up, we can't bring that up right now, but in the game, there's a red or blue foundation that we use to
Talking about these wheels right here?
No, the wheels that run.
These wheels are the rollers.
No, the other wheels.
Okay, so this is our special drivetrain that we use. It's called the mechanism drivetrain. So each one of these wheels have individual rollers on them, and with software coding commands, we can make
Those
them
are all
move in
extra.
different ways.
Those are all extra you have to pay for.
Yeah, we have to. So this whole set of wheels is $250. Yeah.
And a lot of this we pay out of our own pockets, mainly Sherman's pockets.
Do you have an event that you are working toward this year?
We want to
We have an upcoming competition, which is in
ILT on February 23rd.
which is in the next few weeks.
Where is it?
It's in Monrovia High School.
Ah,
So it's
what time does it start?
It starts
Too early.
I mean, I would like to pop in. Is it over here?
February 23rd.
At 9 o'clock. It runs from about 9 o'clock to about 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
So where are you on the agenda?
Throughout the day. So we have, the way the ILT works is that, I don't know the exact number, but there's about 30 teams that arrive that are competing that day. Each team is grouped into pairs for each match, and we will compete, I believe it's 10 to 12 times during the day, and we don't know that schedule until after we've checked in. They've inspected the robot to make sure that all the parts are in compliance, that nothing's sharp or pokey or dangerous, nothing will catch on fire, and then they generate the schedule for the day at about 9:45, 10 o'clock. And then we're there all day.
When you say you check in, you have to pay something?
We've already registered for the event, and we were actually given a grant at the end of last year through one of the organizations that works with FIRST, and we use that grant funding to pay for that.
So, by show of hands, how many of you are taking courses that help you towards this project?
Or have taken, so most of
I
us.
haven't, I'm not taking one right now
But-
in theory, but I took both the EDT and the
Yeah.
advanced CAD projects.
And we all have.
And
I'm
coding?
currently taking Mr. Bradley's woodworking class.
Yeah,
So
I'm also taking wood.
yeah, this class really helps us with like making like stronger parts using CNC. But I'm also taking like Mr. Dickey's class, which does like 3D printing stuff and laser cutting stuff, which is one of the main features that we find here. So we use laser cutting technology.
Another thing is, I know Sherman is part of Dragonflix. There is also a video portion of the competition. There's a notebook that Karen has been working on that highlights all of our meeting notes and all of our pictures over our design phases and all of the above. So there's a whole lot of everything going on with the competition.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much for coming. Jerry, you want a picture?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What happened to the
that one last year that had the 1031 on it or whatever it was?
We actually still have the signs. We normally put them on during competition, but right now we're trying to rework it a little bit and make it stronger. So we don't have the signs on right now.
The robot's in.
That robot.
The other thing is that at the conclusion of each year, we disassemble our previous robot and use those parts for the next robot.
Okay, so, but your turn?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Have those boys? Hey, can I get the stuff off of my keyboard? Oh, yeah, sure. He's outside. He's right there.
Gotcha.
Okay, thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to hearing more about you.
Thank
Okay?
you.
Next is item 11, it's public comment on agendized and non-agendized items, and I have several here. We'll start with, let's see, is Christina G here? No, okay. Then let's start with Julio Sanchez.
How are we the closest people in Okay, I get it. Oh, sorry. It's okay, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine.
You know, someone gave us a copy of this earlier.
Yeah, Julio Sanchez, I'm the accreditation coordinator for District 98, and you guys give us a contract. And we know what the price is, and I was just wondering, church is $15 for maintenance, facilities, and restaurants. On the second line, you charge us for maintenance again, and custodian fees hourly, which is, I understand because when your program over here says that you're gonna charge me for custodian on the weekends. I 100% agree with that. You should charge me for the weekends because school is closed. If the person has to show up, I pay for it. But Monday to Thursday night, the custodians are in the school from 5 to 8, and I practice from 5 to 8, and you charge me again for custodian. That, I don't know why. If it's the weekend and the school is closed, by all means charge me. I'm fine with that. But Monday to Thursday, when the custodians are in the school, why are you charging me for that? Now, the third line says you're gonna charge me for restaurants again, $8 an hour. And on the first line, you charge me for restaurants. So in the first line, you charge me for maintenance. The second charge, you charge me for maintenance again. And in the third line, you charge me $80 for restaurants. And the first line, you charge me for restaurants. I mean, you guys didn't write this contract, somebody else did. But they should look it over. Because it comes out to $24,000. I charge my kids $100. I got 100 kids. That's $10,000. You just basically told me to close your doors and leave because we can make it. We really can. Okay? And even if you take some off, then we'll be able to make it because we're gonna take some less practices and probably live will open by then and then we can move. But with these prices, you pretty much you're just gonna close the program. $100 per kid, and that's including rental fees, equipment, uniforms, soccer balls, and all that. We work for free. We don't get paid for this. All my coaches, all my referees, all my board members, they work for free. We make zero, no money. We do it for free. We do it for the community. Now, I agree with this. If custodians on the weekends, fine, I pay for it. The group, now, if I don't get the board policy 1330, there's no profit organization that you get it for free. Okay, fine. If you guys don't give me that, then I should be on group 1, and you Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. We do this for free. I mean, why are we not in group 1? No, my kids play for high school, for the Temple City soccer team. My JV plays for high school. The rest of the kids play for Oak. I got 300 kids of the student body playing in Temple City schools right now, NYSO. We support the program, and all I ask you is, I don't give me nothing free. We're willing to pay for it, but this is too much. You can't afford it. You will leave take me out of business. Okay? Now, I love this city.
Mr. Sanchez, you're ran out of time, so could you wrap it up?
Okay. We, you asked for more money for the schools, and we said, fine, no problem. Full fund, no problem. We did everything you asked for it. All I asked is for you, for the community, to do something for us. Just go over the contract and see if you can take some more. Okay? Thank you.
We'll be taking that up, item 27 tonight. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Okay, next, I'm sorry, Cynthia Mendoza.
Yes.
Wants to speak regarding field usage fees.
Yes. Hi, good evening, board. So I'm from Temple City National Little League. My name is Cynthia Mendoza, and I'm here on behalf of our board. I serve on the board as a secretary. I also have 2 children in Temple City schools, and I also serve on council people. Our president and vice president were unable to attend. They're handling interlock relationships for our Little League. So I'm here on their behalf. And we're here to kindly ask, similar to the gentleman that just spoke, that you reconsider any fees that are currently being charged to our Little League and any other Temple City youth sports programs. I'm certain you are all aware of the Civic Center Act. The spirit of this act was to ensure that structures and facilities built with public dollars were allowed to benefit the public for other purposes beyond just schooling. It appears to be that other school districts in California have applied this act accordingly based on its intent. A couple of examples would be Rosemead and San Marino school districts. It also became evident at the last Board of Ed meeting that our president attended, that the school board is aware the district report that established these fees may have been incorrect, thus requiring a new report. I'm sorry, I don't know the name of the report I didn't get the name of the report. So an example of these charges for our league would be the use of Cloverleaf field space. This upcoming season alone, we're estimated to incur a usage fee of just under $2,000. Green space is a valuable community resource, and we believe these resources should be available to the community for specific uses, like youth sports. Again, things that would not interfere with educational activities, but in turn help create a strong community. The way our league helps the community, we develop players for the high school team, and like the parents spoke before, we also help boys through ages 4 to 17 develop their baseball skills and then feed them into the high school system. That's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, one last thing. We are celebrating our 65th anniversary. I'm certain some of you received an invitation. And so our opening ceremonies will be our 65th anniversary. We're gonna have, our field is named Milham Field. The Milham family is coming, with their children surviving, the wife and children of the family members. So you guys are all invited.
When is it?
February 28th, Friday, February 28th at 6:30.
I didn't get an invitation, but no one did? Okay,
No,
so
not yet.
we'd love to have one.
Okay, we'll send,
Thank
sure
you.
we'll send it. Okay, thank you.
I have 2 more, but the people left, and it was for item 27, so they left a written statement, so I'll read the written statements when we get to that item. All right, so that leaves us to our district updates, and we'll start with business services. Mary Ann Sorrell.
Good evening. I'm happy to report that after many attempts of receiving a grant from the Fruit Tree Planting Foundation, the district finally was granted 40 trees or bushes. They will be scheduled to be planted between August 1st and 4th. We don't have a definite date quite yet. They'll be providing the trees, all the amendments for the soil, and a design expert. The M&O group has already met with site administration to pick out an area for the orchard to be planted. We'll be looking for 20 volunteers. It'll take about a half a day, so when I get more information about what time they're coming, I will be happy to share that with you. On another note, I'm sure that you recall that most of the projects that we have done related to the bond, Cloverleaf, La Rosa, the high school, both phases of the high school and the Learning Center, were available for matching grants from the state. So I'm very excited to tell you that I got news today that 5 of the matches will be coming, and the money will be coming between now and the end of the year. And it will be about $28 million. I'm happy to share that with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Educational Services, Joshua Porter.
Thanks. We're still working on our website design for the different school sites. We have one more school site we have to meet with tomorrow, trying to identify and solidify their official logos and colors. As I've updated earlier, many of the sites have purchased clothing items and selected colors based on convenience or availability, which has created quite a variety of color options at each of the sites. So trying to narrow that down and get the official logos has been a little bit of a challenge, but I think it's been a good work and kind of a happy discussion to have with a lot of the administrators and site leaders there. On Tuesday, February 4th, the leadership teams were trained on the administration of the California Assessment for Student Performance. All of our the state assessments are coming up. They're right around the corner. The training provides an annual site leadership team the equipment or equips them with the necessary information to coordinate testing and serve as site coordinators for testing. Additional training was provided for special education teachers who have students identified as taking the California Alternative Assessment. Our English language proficiency test, that window opened last Monday. This test is annually administered to all students identified as English learners. Most sites began their testing last week. We do feel that having the opportunity to pilot the test in October gave us a little bit of an advantage to get started and help things run a little bit more smoothly. It seems to be running and we'll be done on time there. And then lastly, the District English Language Advisory Committee, they met last Thursday, February 6th. As services staff shared important information regarding upcoming assessments, including the English Language Proficiency Assessment, the California Students Performance Progress in ELA Mathematics and Science, and the Physical Fitness Test. The DLAC also participated in an activity providing input for the LCAP development, as well as a parent and student survey. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Personnel Services, Monica Makovich.
Good evening. I just want to remind the community that we have our Strategic Planning Input Community Forum on February 19th from 5:30 to 7 here at the boardroom, so please join us. It is our second one in the series. Our LCAP survey, as Dr. Porter was speaking about, DLAC put their final input in. The drafts will be completed this week, and we will deploy either in the last week of February, first week of March, to all staff, parents, and students grade 3 and above. We started our employee intent to return survey today to help determine our staffing needs for next year. And I would like to piggyback on what Ellen and her team did for negotiations. We thank them for all their efforts. We promise that we will have an academic calendar in the next week or so for the next 3 years, and we will get that out to our staff and families as soon as possible. We negotiate with CSEA 105 and 823 later this week and hope to wrap up. We have our annual job share meeting for all our certificated staff tomorrow at 3:15 here in conference room A. And some information for parents, our ELP spring break, our childcare runs from March 30th to April 3rd. It's for all students TK through 7th grade and will run from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And if you have any questions, just please call the district office and we will have you be in touch with Mickey Wong or Cindy Ayala to go over what you need to bring in. And new enrollment for students begins March 1st at the school sites. To help ease the process, I recommend all parents just call the school site and they will go over the documents you need and book a time for you to come in. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to our bargaining units. TCEA, Ellen. Okay, thank you. CSEA 105, I don't see Robin. So we'll move on to CSEA 823, Art Contreras. Nothing? Okay. Next, we'll have our student board member comments.
Good evening, everyone. Winterfall was a success, and ASB is currently planning for our Tcusd dance, which will be on March 20th. The high school is currently in campaigning week for next year's elected ASB members, and voting will take place next week. ASB also plans to congratulate the many sports teams that made CIF, which include boys and girls basketball, boys and girls soccer, and girls water polo. So that's really good. Next week, ASB will also be preparing for the upcoming Community Festival, and the high school senior class was requesting whether the district could help subsidize some of the costs of graduation since it is an event that all seniors work towards. And that's it for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is board member comments, and we'll start with Mr. Smith.
Thank you. I don't have a lot to share. I unfortunately had to miss the dance concert, which was on January 30th. That was my first day back home after spending 12 days in the hospital. It was just a tough time to get up and go. I did have a chance to attend a meeting on the 31st with the district and the city. It's our ad hoc committee in which we talked about a number of things, including the crosswalk relocation that was talked about earlier, facilities used in terms of sharing, doing a better job of sharing. And also kind of an interesting thing came up, actually the meeting before this, is a county in Taiwan, I'm going to probably butcher the name, it's Hualien, I believe, and they contacted the city about creating a sort of a sister city organization, and what it turns out to really be is that they're really looking more at an exchange program for some of their students in the high school level. So at some point, we're looking forward to talk with them a little bit more about what their interests are and see if there might be something we can do there, but I think that's very interesting. On February 8th, I had a chance to attend the Community Festival coronation. That was last Saturday night at Live Oak Park. Lots of participation from a lot of the students in our district. I want to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day coming up this Friday, and encourage everybody to participate and attend the Community Festival coming up February 21st through the 23rd. And don't forget the Kiwanis Pancake Breakfast on the morning of the 22nd. I have tickets if anybody's interested. Oh, I actually, sorry, one more thing. I did see in Facebook a number of our teams from the high school that are involved in CIF playoffs. In fact, I think there were 6, and it's really exciting to see that kind of success. So congratulations.
You have some bad news though. Someone just texted me and our boys soccer lost.
Second round.
But anyways, we had a good season. All right, next is Melissa.
So, good evening, everybody. I attended the dine out at Blaze on Friday. I think it was to support PTSA at the high school, right? That's what I get confused because I know Ramrodders does a lot of dine outs. So I believe that is what it was supporting. I hope they did well. I did attend JV boys soccer game, the first CIF round. That was on Monday, I believe. I attended that game. They won, and it was a great game and a great turnout. I also attended girls varsity basketball game. I got the second half of that game, and they did great. They were kind of, in size there was a big difference, but in heart they won the day. So even though I don't think that they were successful, I think their effort was great, and I loved watching it. I also saw the girls varsity water polo CIF game yesterday, and they won, and it was a great game. And what I think in observing all of those, I think the thing that I took away, and I commented on this yesterday, was that all of the kids from all the other sports come to support their fellow sports folks at their games. So you see soccer kids coming to cheer on the water polo girls, and the same thing with the basketball. And so I just thought that was great, and I commented on it, and I think that shows a lot about the character of our kids, which means a lot to me for sure, and I know for all of us. I plan to attend the Valentine card event. It's in 601 on Thursday. It celebrates, just Valentine's Day. A lot of the Brighter Side kids perform Valentine themed songs, and they have dessert and hot cocoa and things like that, so that you can come and enjoy the evening the day before Valentine's Day. So I think tickets are $10. I think that is what it is. And if you go to the Performing Arts Facebook page, You can see the details about that, but I know it starts at 7 and I will be going. And then I'm also just looking forward to the Founders Day event and the Camellia Festival, which is like coming up next week, can't believe it. So hope to see people there. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken?
I'd just like to wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day is coming up. Also, the 21st, I'm going to have to do a test at a hospital, so I'm going to be out that whole day, or the day before probably.
On
The
February
20
21st?
On the 21st, which is a Friday.
Okay.
And the 20th, I'll be I'll be probably preparing for the hospital day.
Okay, all right, we'll hope everything goes well.
Yeah, so do I. I don't think there's going to be any problem, just a test. Also, I'd like to thank everybody for all their support for the school, for each school, and that's about it.
Thank you. All right, I'll go next. Start off kind of on a downer note, but I wanted to say this while we still have people in the audience. Tonight we're going to adjourn our meeting in memory of Claire Marquardt. She passed away on January 17th, 2020 after a lengthy illness. She was born March 23rd, 1947 at Queen of Angels in Los Angeles, California. Claire was the daughter of the Honorable Harold F. Collins and Julia M. O'Neill. She received her bachelor's degree from Mount St. Mary's in 1969 and her master's degree in education from Loyola Marymount School, or Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles. Claire was an educator and spent her entire 39-year career at Temple City High School, where she taught English and humanities, and she was my teacher. She also served as the head of the English department. A resident of Sierra Madre for over 45 years, Claire was devoted to her family and her community. She was active at St. Rita's School as a board member of the PTO and other committees while her children were in attendance. She later served at Flint Ridge Sacred Heart Academy and St. Francis High School as her children progressed. She has 4 children, Katie, Michael, Marty, and Andy, and 3 grandchildren, and she also leaves a husband, Dennis Marquardt, who was another teacher at the high school, and we'll be talking about him a little later. So I did want to say that while people were here. Let's see, moving on. I wanted to thank the Temple City Schools Foundation for their donation this month. I also wanted to thank TCEA for the burritos tonight. That was very nice of you. And I want to thank the TCEA union negotiating staff and our district negotiating staff for working so hard and coming to an agreement. I attended the girls water polo match with Melissa, and it was a great game. It was a great game because we slaughtered them. It wasn't a close game. It was really impressive. But I want to congratulate all the winter sports teams because they all did exceptionally well this year. I attended the signing ceremony, speaking of water polo, at Temple City High School for 2 of our students, Ivan Pang and Sydney Chang. Sydney is going to play water polo at UCLA, and Ivan's going to play at the U.S. Naval Academy. And I want to thank Jerry for being there because I think Jerry makes it really special. They're taking pictures like the paparazzi, so they really seemed to enjoy it, and it was really a special event. I attended the Camellia Festival coronation on Saturday night. It was really great to see all the cute little kids that are on our royal court, most of them which they come from our schools. Also the Brighter Side Singers performed and their newsies, and got me all excited to go see that soon. I wanted to encourage everyone to attend the Camellia Festival because it really is a lot about our schools. All our schools are participating in the parade. A lot of them have fundraising activities at the Camellia Festival, including, not a fundraising activity, but we have our teachers union who are going to be out there. They were there last year doing books. I think you're going to do the same thing, Ellen. Really a nice thing to do for our community. And also on Saturday night is the Temple City High School reunion. So Anybody from any year, we hope we'll see you there. I'll be there for sure. On February 1st, I attended the board president's training, and it was very timely because we have two big projects we're working on now, and it really gave me some good guidance. One is the evaluation of the superintendent, and the other one is a board self-evaluation. And I wanted to let everybody know that currently we are working with CSBA. They have sent us, all the board members, evaluation forms to fill out. We're all going to be filling them out. CSBA will be compiling the results, and then we will have an open meeting where we will do a self-evaluation. And the public is welcome to attend and to give us comments on how you think we're performing. We don't have a date scheduled yet because we have to wait till we get the results back from CSBA, but we will let everyone know ahead of time, and please feel free to come and give us your comments. I also attended the meeting with the ad hoc meeting with the city staff, and I think I walked away feeling like we're really developing a good relationship with the city, and I think both entities are going to benefit from that in the long run, so I'm excited to see that continue. I attended a couple of dine-outs at Blaze. Anytime I see one, I try to show up and participate, so I'm not sure, I don't remember exactly what they were for, but I was there. And I attended the dance concert, which I have to say, I think this year was one of the best that I've seen in recent years. It was really great. We had a lot of very talented students. And finally, I attended LACSTA, which I'm not even sure what that stands for, but
LA County Schools Trustees Association.
That's what it stands for. Okay, thank you, Matt. And they have quarterly meetings, quarterly or monthly? Monthly meetings, okay. I attended it, and the speaker was from UCLA, and he spoke on implicit biases, and it was really a very interesting topic, and so I'm looking forward to attending more of those meetings. So thank you, and now to Dr. Lin.
Thank you, Donna. Good evening. Like Donna, I attended the LACSTA meeting, which stands for the Los Angeles County Schools Trustees Association. Got it right? Yeah, thanks. So it's a monthly meeting, and it's always enjoyable. It's like a mini CSBA, just that it's local, instead of going to Orange County or San Francisco for the CSBA and to learn from other board members best practices as to how to govern. They have this local organization, which is always very educational for me to attend. My God, kudos to the presenters tonight. Our students are just phenomenal. I was blown away. I mean, traffic safety initiative, voter registration, census, elementary support, and that's the Temple City Youth Council, run by students. Robotics presentation, 21 members, and we had those fantastic speakers up there talking about Java. I was like, oh my God, this is, I wish I was a kid in high school, you know? Using their phones to program that robot. And I was still thinking, what kind of CPU do you use? No, we use our phones now. Okay, I'm dating myself. Okay. Thank you, TCA. I mean, it was such a kind gesture. And I hope you had a chance to taste some of Donna's heart-shaped cookies and your chocolate chip cookies and the muffins I brought, but I really enjoyed the burritos. Thank you very much. And I wish everybody happy Valentine's Day and an early President's Day holiday. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is the superintendent's comments.
Thank you so much. So I too attended the Community Fest at the Coronation Festival at Live Oak Park, and that was a time-honored tradition from what I understand, and they were all so adorable in their matching dresses. Very, very well done. So that event, I'm looking forward to the Chameleon Festival. I too attended LACSTA, and in our kind of mission towards student wellness and staff wellness, I think the message that we heard that night was very important, and just to take a good check about where our biases are and then how we can make all of our interactions much better for those of us who come across our paths every single day. And we're going to try to weave that into students and student services as well, as they were in attendance in that evening as well. I did go to the dance concert and it exceeded all expectations. I was not here last year to see the dance concert, but it was very, very, very impressive with choreography, the dance, the costumes that they had. It really truly was amazing. I think my favorite part were the staff participation. It was quite a bit of a competition, and there was no doubt who was going to win the competition. So that was a fun event. The next mixer, since TCA has put on 2 events, I think it is high time that our group up here have one for you. So that will be forthcoming. I think those events are so important because it allows us to just sit and mingle, have a little bite to eat, and talk, and really do what a district family should do, and that's get together and just have a good time. So thank you so much for your leadership on that end. And also thank you to you, Ellen and Kyla, who's not in the room, but for the work on the negotiations team and making sure that we could have gotten to a tentative agreement. And I hope that we have continued work for many years. So thank you very much. We are holding a March 16th Professional Development Day that will be held at the high school. We're actually going to do an active shooter drill. So more information is going to be coming out as all of the events of the day have been finalized, and then those communications have begun to come out to our staff. More of those communications will be coming out to our staff. This is something, unfortunately, that is a part of the fabric of our nation now, and it's a part of our students' lives, it's a part of our staff's lives, and we feel very incumbent that we need to make sure that we have the tools necessary to respond, react, and deal with an event should it come our way. We do hope that it doesn't, but we do know that we need to be educated so that we can either prevent such an event from happening or respond correctly if an event does. So more information will be coming out to the public. We are working with the city. We did have a joint meeting the other week. We discussed this event, and we are working with local law enforcement, the police department, to participate, as well as LA County sheriffs to participate in the event should we need a response. We have those organizations who are familiar with our facilities, and they can aid in our response in a timely fashion. So I just want to thank all of the officers who will be in attendance, and they do take their work very, very seriously. I met with the captain of the LA Sheriff's Department, and this is something that they dread ever thinking about happening, but they do have a very serious desire to protect all of our students in our community. So I want to extend that back out to the community from their offices. Last but not least, it was an incredible gift to be invited into the kindergarten classrooms all across the district. I was able in the past couple weeks to spend about 30 to 40 minutes in all of the kindergarten classrooms and just look at all of the assignments, the rotations, the time-honored traditions that they have, the way that they instruct, the new curriculum that they're using, and then all of the detail that they put into each and every lesson for the students. And I was extremely impressed with their professionalism and their grace. And every student, I can tell you for sure, every student that goes through our kindergarten programs are special kids when they come out of our kindergarten programs. And so, especially at Longden, there were some of the very, very young visually impaired students in the classroom, and they are receiving a top-notch education. And there's such care with the Emperor, La Rosa, such care that goes into working with all of those young people. So thank you very much. You're in the room. And I look forward to coming back in your rooms and then continuing the conversation with you in the near future. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Next is written communications. I did receive a few more cards, as I assume some of my fellow board members did also, from the teachers union regarding negotiations. And I received a ton of cards from the freshman seminar class at Temple City High School. Thank you cards, so that was very sweet of them to do that. Did anybody else receive any?
I just got one card from me.
Oh, okay. Anything other than that? All right, thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to discussion information items, starting with business services, discussion on budget reporting.
before that, last week was counselors.
National Counselors Week.
Oh,
Sorry, we forgot.
and we love our counselors, so I don't want to forget that. Okay, thank you.
So I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on the budget reporting that we are developing. Fiscal Services has been working the last several months to develop a new tool to be used by all the sites and departments to provide more transparency and a little bit easier to use. This report will allow them to review every expense that occurs each month. All the site secretaries and all the department secretaries have been trained how to update this report each month, and we're estimating it to take the larger departments about 30 minutes a month to keep that updated. And all the staff has been trained, and a few have asked for some extra training, so we're finalizing that this week.
Maybe a quick question about that. We're implementing the best system from the county, right?
We will work with, wait for.
Oh, we'll wait for.
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to Move on to item 19, which is discussion of facility use.
So while the PowerPoint is coming up, this
Microphone.
thank you.
So okay, let me say one thing before you start that, because someone just sent me a text, Temple City High School boys basketball one. So, okay, I'm sorry, but that's really important.
It is important. All happy news is important.
Yeah.
So this presentation has been brought to you before, so I'm going to walk through it pretty quickly. This is the current process. We will be seeking board input for any changes or recommendations to change for this process. Currently, we receive all the facility use applications in the district office. We review them to make sure they're complete, including all insurance and all information that's required. We are required to have the district named as additionally insured on every proof of insurance. And there's a current fee schedule, which will be updated after our study is complete. I'm planning to bring a contract to you at the next meeting for the company that we're recommending to do the next fee study.
So the fee study that everybody's talking to is last year's fee schedule or this year's?
There was a fee study done 2 years ago, and none of the fees have changed between when that study was done and now. Another fee schedule would be done, and then their recommended fees will be proposed to the board for approval. There are 4 different groups that have different fees, and I'll get to that in just a slide or two. An additional group was added in January 2020. What's being covered by the fees is maintenance of facility, utilities, liability, insurance costs, and custodial expenses. Our contract requires a 2-hour minimum show up. So if a group is using the facilities on a weekend, maybe for 8 or 9 hours, we schedule someone at 2 hours to open and 2 hours to close. Rental fees are one of the few ways the district can offset expenses that's available to us. And there are fees associated with most rental agreements that exist. We are permitted to charge rental fees for facility use, and that's a repeat what I have there, so I'm just going to skip right through that. The next slide shows you an example of most of the groups that use our facilities at this time. It's not an exhaustive list, but this is the majority of the folks that are currently using the facilities. The next slide shows you the application form. We will be updating this and bringing a proposed new form for the board to approve and make comment on.
So anybody that uses our facility needs to use that form?
Yes, they do now, and we'll be updating it. I'd like to make it a fillable form. All these forms are available on the website, others make them fillable so that it will be easier for people to use and clean up the data.
Or ask somebody?
So it's on the website, and it's also available here at the district office. Right now, they're on the 3rd floor, but I'm going to put them down on the 1st floor to make it easier for people to access them when they can. But I don't think it's looking the 3rd floor, and we'll probably have them. The next slide talks about some of the rules and regulations, no smoking, no animals on the site, that type of thing. This will also come back to you with some additions, and then, of course, seeking input from the board. can skip the next one, Monica. It's just the detail of the Senate Bill 1404. As I mentioned on the next slide, it outlines the current 3 categories. The 4th category that has been added, it's a little bit confusing, so I'm looking for a little more guidance on this. It's defined as groups not related to the district activity or district students. But it's still a little vague to me, so I'm reaching out to Sacramento to get a little more explanation of who they think would fit into that 4th group. And I will keep you updated as I get more information. The board policy 1330 was updated June 15, 2016, and of course we'll revisit that as the board makes recommendations changes for the current process. The next steps we have to do in this area is the new facility use study, which, as I mentioned, I'll be bringing a recommendation to the board at our next meeting so we can get that started. We'll be updating the requests for facility use, the forms and the approvals, and training organizations that use our facilities on the process and staff as well. And we're going to develop a flow chart to make it as simple as possible for people to follow the process. So the last slide is areas. We don't have enough time, I think, tonight to go through everything, but these are just some areas I asked the board to give some consideration to and provide us some direction. For example, how you would like to prioritize approval if there are 2 groups wanting a facility at the same time. Booster group training, booster group board approval, and we're hoping to bring that back in May. Site club events, tutoring companies, cost for assistance to groups that are running events when they ask for assistance from either custodial, lifeguards, setting tables up, using other district assets. The other thing we need to talk about is rest for athletic fields and the wear and tear. I've asked the M&O staff to come up with a proposal for each of our green areas of what time of the year they're going to do their reseeding and fertilizing and how many weeks of rest we need. All of our fields are natural turf. We don't have any artificial turf. And so when they're used, all week long for PE and then maybe 8 hours on a Saturday and a Sunday for another club event, there's not a chance for the reseeding to happen. We end up with a lot of mud, and then when we don't have grass and we have mud, when it gets watered, it causes mud for everybody and it makes it difficult for the PE departments to use the field. So we're working on a plan for that. And then during those periods of rest, then we would make other fields available to folks that need somewhere. Restitution for unauthorized alterations or damages that are caused by an outside group, and how we want to categorize groups of the 4 categories that are available for this fee schedule. How do we want to categorize the different groups that are applying? A system of, system or process for approval if we'd like to make any changes to that. We'd like to talk to you about a summer swim program to be put on by the district, and facility requirements associated with the rental agreement, so to have a better understanding from folks what they need when they're using the facility. Thank you.
Any questions? I have one. So are you anticipating that you're going to wait until the study comes back before we start discussing these things, or start discussing them beforehand and then?
I think we can start discussing how the board wants to categorize different groups. Thank you. And those kinds of items. The study will come back with a recommended cost schedule, but I think we can work on those side by side. Okay. I don't think we have to wait for the study to be finished.
Okay, great.
I do have a question. So what have you observed about the process as it exists today? Are people confused about it? Are there issues that we have to address with the process of just applying for facilities? Any feedback or observations you want to share?
There seems to be a little bit of confusion of what groups need to do the process and which groups don't. There's a little confusion on the timing to allow enough time to get it in to go through the process before their events take place. But I don't think we have any major issues.
I think one observation I would have is we only have one scheduled fee schedule, and so that does need to be delineated and broken apart by or across the 4 different groups. And so we want to include the latest update in January, that 4th category, into that fee schedule and that fee study, and that perhaps will clear up, at least who gets charged what or what amount. And then the other area, with regard to facility use is just the calendaring. So it's incumbent that if you're using it for a fee or for non-fee individuals, that we get it on the same facility calendar so that we don't have two groups accidentally thinking that they both have one item, room, field booked at the same time. And that would avoid some of the conflicts that have happened, as some people do put in a facility use request, and then others may just have it assumed, or it has been this way, but there's some sort of communication and there's an accidental conflict. So we want to avoid the conflict.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Item 20 is an inclusion presentation.
And stuff. Right.
Dr. Fricker, sorry.
I'm on.
That's Porter.
I know that. Technically, special education has been one of the topics that we have brought before the board last spring. We wanted to give just a general update, overview of where we are, what we've been working on throughout the course of this year, and it's just a continuum of the presentations that we brought forth in the spring. If you remember the educational focuses that we have established at the end of the last school year, we do want to increase the accuracy of student placement. That's always a paramount concern. We do want to establish a standardized nomenclature for how we name the programs and the categories or the courses that students would have access to. We do want to provide appropriate interventions, accommodations, modifications, and support to all of our special needs students and our EL students and our populations where we know that we need to provide those interventions or accommodations. We also want to provide, in looking across the special education program and in working with our union leadership, Robin who's not here tonight, but we've talked extensively about our classified aides who do tireless work in the classroom to support students. There is no bracketing of or differentiating of aides. They're all classified under one classification, even though they do drastically different jobs within the classroom. So we want to look at that and try to appropriately name them for the jobs that they are doing. And we're going to hopefully accomplish that with Ms. Makovitz with the classification study through the Human Resource Office. Finally, we want to increase our inclusion percentage just to satisfy the state requirement for that program and review status that we brought to the board last year. Just a reminder, the state does focus on the least restrictive environment for students, and that's having students who have special needs have access to like peers throughout their scheduled day. They have two big categories where they look for those inclusive measures. One is with your mild to moderately disabled student, and the goal would be for those students to be included, around the 80% of their day in an inclusive environment. For the moderate to severely disabled student, that inclusion percentage is around 40%, and those are just targeted goals that the state looks at. With the moderate to severe program, those students exist within our TK through 12 environment, but they also exist in our preschool environment. The state identified areas that were outlined for Temple City Unified School District for program and review. We were notified 3 years ago and have been notified every year since that we fall into the following indicator categories. Indicator 3A is ELA participation on the state assessment. So our curriculum and instruction office is working on increasing that percentage. It's a 95% threshold, 95% participation by students in the assessment, and that would include our special needs population. Indicator 5A is the least restrictive environment, that 80% that I had just mentioned. Indicator 5B, least restrictive environment, in that 40% category. Indicator 6A and 6B are the least restrictive environments regarding the preschool program. One is preschool in the regular day setting. One is least restrictive environment in separate school setting, and that would be like a non-public school placement or placement outside of our district. And then indicator 15 is child find, and that's the IDEA mandate that we have an obligation as a local district to identify students who are struggling and try to intervene and provide support early on and if they need to be assessed for special education, that is incumbent upon us to do so. And that's a generalized indicator for many, many districts, not just our district. With regard to the age 6 through the 22 program, that program and review status, here's a couple just data points for you to chart our progress. As you can see that we have gradually increased our participation rate based on the state target. The state target was not set for this year, it's not been released to us. We did call this over this week and they still do not have a release of that percentage amount. So once we get that, we will bring that to you. But those numbers account for the least restrictive environment for the 80 and the 40% categories. In 2019-20, here were the progress and the initiatives that we put forth so far this year. We conducted a thorough IEP audit, and that was looking at all of the 611 students and their IEPs. They were read cover to cover to make sure that we were in compliance with the IEP measures, and whatever items that we found in those IEPs that we would need to address either in a training element or in a calculation of the service amounts each student got, we wanted to make sure that they were correct and accurate. We also did a program audit. The special education team visited every single school site and they sat down with the special education teachers and the administrators to outline what the programs and services they offered at their sites. We developed a service calculator, and that was to help our special education staff calculate the accurate number of service minutes each student was provided, and that it would be recorded properly in the IEP, and that was based for the first time on each school's instructional minutes. And so in years past, it was a general calculator, and it didn't take into account each school's instructional day, which are all different. So I do feel that by the end of the school year, as we go through the entire cycle and every student has come through this recalculation, that their calculation will be accurate. We've trained all of the service, the special education teachers to use that calculator throughout the course of this year. We did provide quarterly letters that were sent out to our staff members just to try to increase our communication and let them know the progress that we were working on and the items that we were working on with regard to special education and inclusion. And then we wanted to evaluate the preschool program for inclusion options. With regard to the age 3 through 5 preschool program that we were notified with the program and review status, just want to give you a couple facts or pieces of data of progress there. From the 17-18 school year to the 18-19 school year, we don't have current school year data. That was not released to us at this point. But you do see that we are increasing from 22.4%, or we actually decreased from 22.4% to 23.8%, and that was preschool and the regular school setting. We decreased percentage because we increased students. So all of our students in the preschool program do not have access to like peers, so the more students we have, the lower our percentage of inclusion is. Does that make sense? Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
The bottom one.
The bottom one is a decrease.
Yeah, okay.
So, and that is the least restricted environment in the separate setting, because they are completely 100% sheltered from inclusion. Sorry, thank you, Donna. I skipped ahead.
How many people are we talking about?
In the preschool program? Currently we have 13 students in the preschool program, and we have 2 students that are pending approval of coming into the preschool program. Yes, they're moderately to severely disabled students. Current preschool data, the student population is moderate to severe in that program. IDEIA, which is a new acronym for me, it's Individuals with Disability Education Improvement Act. It's the reauthorization of IDEA. Requires all school districts to offer preschool programs for age 3 through 5 for students who are have severe disability, moderate to severe disability. Currently, our preschool program has 13 students in it, and the SELBA recommends a 13-to-1 ratio. We have talked to union leadership about the number of students in the preschool program, and it is a growing concern, especially with 2 additional students pending to be entered into the program. It's currently offered at Emperor, and Emperor, looking at the facility, we would have to look at ways to expand the current preschool program or offer a different school day to accommodate for new students that would be enrolled into that program. Current considerations would be adding a classroom or reauthorizing the instructional day. A new classroom would come with a credentialed teacher, staff, and materials. So that is something that we need to be considering on the horizon. Like I said before, there really is no room to expand at Emperor in its current configuration, so we would have to look at that, or we could look at different sites throughout the school district to house the preschool program. Technically, preschool programs, because of their age range, need to be separate from the regular school environment, just for the protection of the youngsters. And we've looked at other classes around the surrounding areas from the SELBA, and other preschool programs are full or are getting to be full in other districts. And then we have to keep in mind that these youngsters do not have access to like peers, so they were 100% without inclusion, so they're 100% excluded at this current time. The possible solutions for our preschool program, we could enroll students in Head Starts or private school programs that would extend services or allow our services to come into those preschool programs, most of which are not able to accommodate the severely disabled students that we currently have in our program. Another area is enrolling in other SELBA preschool programs in other districts, so we're exploring that as an option. Again, most of them are full or approaching full, so we would have to work through those discussions. There was a meeting with the assistant superintendent of the SELBA earlier today to discuss this issue, to see what could be done or what couldn't be done to help us out or to assist our students. We could move the preschool program to another Tcusd school, which would allow an expansion of a second classroom or a reconfiguration of the instructional minute at Emperor. And then we could develop a general education preschool program to ride alongside our current preschool, which is just for our special needs students. That would satisfy the program and review indicators 6A and 6B, and it would also allow for the expansion. So those are some of the options that we are currently looking at in terms of what we could do for the current growing enrollment of the preschool and also the program and review status of the preschool.
Each one of these would cost us money.
Each one of these would cost us a different amount of money, yes. Yes. The district, us, yes. All of us. So preschool funding, I just wanted to bring you up to date on some of the preschool funding formula changes that have taken place, and these are current discussions that are happening at the Superintendent's Council at the SELBA meetings. IDEA, the old authorization, preschool local entitlement 3320 is the preschool special education funding that has been put in place over the past couple of years, but now has ended. It has been folded into IDEA Local Assistance Entitlement 3310, which is just K-12 special education. So in effect, at the end of last year, so beginning this year, the funding that was reserved or restricted for preschools it's now unrestricted, and it's now considered just a part of that K-12 special education funding. The result of that restriction lift to the funding is now that the districts in our surroundings, in our SELBA, the surrounding districts, are now eligible for the dollars that were once set aside to run or subsidize the preschool programs. And the current discussion of the district superintendents at the SELBA is that the districts who don't have a preschool are now wanting those funds to be fairly divided amongst all of the districts and not only given to the districts who have preschool programs. So for the 7 districts who have preschools and had that authorization of funds, we are now standing to lose money because the 7 districts who didn't have preschools are wanting to have their fair share of those funds, because now they're supposed to be evenly distributed among special education programs. So that will have an impact moving forward. The decisions have not been decided as to what allocation of those funds will be divided and when, but those decisions are being had through the spring. Next week is the superintendent's council meeting at the SELVA, and that discussion item will come up again. And they're wanting to have a decision by the end of the school year as to how the prior authorization of preschool funding will be distributed across all 14 districts now instead of just the 7 before. So that will be one of the factors that we will keep bringing forward to you. And the last item that we have been working on is just the academic learning continuum as we shift from looking at just a special education setting or an English language setting to a continuum across our district where students would gain access to varied classes and hopefully increase levels of participation. We want to make sure that we do that very succinctly, but we also want to do that with the inclusion of our union and our teaching staff. And so this is a graphic that we have brought to the district last year. We've continued to revise and edit that, and then we are going to be working with union leadership, our principals, and our site staff to make sure that when we schedule students and place students and have transition of students, that we do it in a fashion that is conducive to the growth of our program, but is also hinging upon the training that we provide our staff over the summer and at the start of the next school year. So all of that work is to come, and we will continue to keep the staff and the board updated on our progress.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
For the comments? Oh, sorry. I just wanted to thank you for the hard work you put in. I noticed one slide in the middle of the deck that talked about progress of students between 6 and 22 years old. We went from the low to mid 40s to 63% or so this year, so that was outstanding progress. Thank you for jumping on that and taking care of it. And we have a ways to go.
Yeah, I wanted to commend you and the team for the work done on special ed because there's been some great progress, and I know it's a complicated issue, and yeah, just great job.
I want to shout out to the community that, IDEA is an unfunded mandate. The federal government promised 40% funding. The rest comes from AB 602. The thing is, we are lucky if we get 9% from the federal government. So the expectation is, here, you got to meet all these requirements, but we don't get the money. So this is true of our district, of districts within California. The number of special education cases has increased through the years. A lot of litigation costs, but the thing is that the funding doesn't match the requirements at this point. And so Kim, you do an outstanding job because you also represent our district as one of the 14 districts in the SELVA. You are a voting member of the board of directors, right? The thing is with preschool, my understanding is that we have to also have the preschool play equipment be age appropriate. So that's the cost factor. It's not just the teacher, it's not just the cost of the instruction, curriculum, there's play structure. We have to have space outside of the classroom. Those are factored in. One question though, there's a percentage of our students in the self-contained preschool that are non-TCUSD students, and we do get some revenue through AB 602 or part of IDA. Now, if this local assistance entitlement 3310 roll over to 3320 to 3310, the districts that don't currently have preschools, they will have to take those kids back because right now they're paying us.
Well, preschool gets a little complicated because the students who are placed in our preschool program, yes, they go through the SELVA program, but they also get placed from a regionalized, the regional center, which is a county-run program. And so it goes to, the first priority is the closest preschool to where that family resides. And so that's where the regionalized program prioritizes placement. If preschools are full, then they will go to the next available closest proximity to the student, because there are oftentimes with this population transportation needs to consider as well. Yes, we do get some funding for students who come outside of our district, but the other thing that the union and I have been talking a lot about is that there aren't the hardline ratios of student to teacher ratio that you cannot exceed 13. We suggest it's 13. And so that makes it very difficult to, when a regionalized program wants to place another student, there's no mandate that says you've hit your maximum, so to speak. That's why the SELPA has set that estimate at 13 to try to manage that number. And so from this point forward, that's just going to be an ongoing conversation as to where are those funding dollars going to come from for students who do come from outside of our district. But to take or not to take, it's really it's the regional program that places.
Yes, Ken?
Do we have to send teachers to the home of the disabled? Vacate from school?
There are certain cases where students are on home hospice or home hospital services. Home hospice would be teacher going to hospital situation, and then the regular home hospital program would be just care inside of the home. But yes, that does happen. Yes, we do.
They teach regular classes, and then this is a separate class.
Yes, and if it's in a separate class, it's just a separate service that Student Services handles and manages, and it's for those students who would require either in-hospital care or in-home care because they're too ill to come or attend school.
Any other questions?
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
I just want to thank the teachers who have worked hard in their classrooms every single day and have gone through this process with us, and we have gone back to the administrative teams and gone back to talk to teachers to get their feedback. And so the revisions and the moving forward has been largely a part of their feedback that has developed this plan too. So I wanted, as you acknowledged, I know that you also acknowledge them as well, but I just wanted to add that footnote onto your comments.
Can I just add one more? My understanding is that the current preschool, students with disabilities in the preschool program, the SELPA program, kindergarten teachers, gen ed teachers are the ones covering IEPs because they're the ones who are at the lowest grade level. So one of the ideas to have a gen ed preschool program is so that the gen ed preschool teachers will be covering those IEPs, right?
That would be correct, yes.
Anything else? All right, thank you. Next is item 21. It's adopt resolution 1920-12, excusing Member Smith's absence from the January 22nd, 2020 regular board meeting due to illness. And I need a motion and a second, please. Motion by Member Espinosa and second by Member Nolenberg. Okay, it's a roll call vote. So I'll do first our preferential vote by our student board member.
Yes.
Okay, yes, don't say I will. Okay, Member Smith?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, Member Espinosa?
Yes.
Member Lynn?
Yes.
I'm a yes. And Member Nolenberg?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so that motion passes 4-0-1. Move on to item 22, which is to receive board policies for first reading, and Dr. Fricker will let you take it from here.
Perfect, thank you. So the first, it's a board bylaw. It's 9250, compensation reimbursement and other benefit. This is a board bylaw that requires us to excuse a board member's absence. And so we want to make that process a little bit easier. And Donna, do you want to add on to that?
I suggested this. It just seems like a lot of extra work for Marie to have to put together a resolution, and we can just do it by vote. So but that's the way the city does it, so that's why I suggested it. Thank you.
Okay, the next item is board policy 6146.11. This is alternative credit score to graduation. This is an item that has been brought to our attention early on in the spring of last year, where students do have the opportunity to take credits externally outside of our district during the summer months. This item it's a board policy that we currently don't have on our books. It's a CSBA authorized policy, so we're more than well able to adopt the policy. It really speaks to correspondence classes, those classes outside of our district, and it provides a provision for students to take up to 40 credits outside of our district. That would equate to one class or 10 credits per summer, which is what kids typically take or students typically take in the summertime. It can be for advancement, it can be for remediation, depending on the student's needs. And it doesn't regulate where students can take or specify where students can take the classes, but it does provide the provisions and clear communication to families that the programs have to be WASP accredited, they have to be UCCSU approved. If there is an athlete, then it is incumbent upon the parent to make sure that it is NCAA accredited should they want to go play sports in college and have that count for that credit total. And so it also outlines other parameters where students can take different classes to fulfill graduation requirements. And it's an updated policy that approves like CTE courses and other such classes that we currently have in our graduate classes. The most significant portion of the policy that we would want to consider as a board is the 40 credits of alternative placement outside or external credit outside of our district.
Is the 40 credits, is that high? Is that the average? Is that
We didn't have any limitation to how many credits, because we didn't have a policy.
Oh, so this is a new
there was no limitation because we didn't adopt the policy when the policy was written, and I'm not quite sure why. We tried to go back in the history. No one seems to remember the histories of why it wasn't adopted. But the 40 credits is a education code minimum. So it is the minimum allowed in education code.
So 40 credits is equivalent to 8 semester courses at the high school.
Yes.
We have one more?
Oh, one more? I was thinking, no more questions? Okay, so then board policy 6162.51, state academic achievement test. This policy was updated by CSBA in 2 prior authorizations. Our current policy has not been updated, and it still refers to the state assessments as the STAR, and we know that those assessments have progressed since that point. So this policy does insert the correct language for the current academic achievement testing. And we just wanted to update that policy prior to going into the assessment window, which Dr. Porter just mentioned in his comments.
Would someone like to make a motion to receive this for first reading? Second motion by Member Smith, second by Member Lynn. Any discussion about this? Okay, Samuel now.
Yes.
Okay, Samuel's a yes, and then everyone else, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-0. Next is item 22, approve adjustments to 2019-2020 district budget.
Is that 23?
It's 23, yeah.
I'm sorry, 23. Okay.
Sorry. So I just wanted to mention 2 things about this. There's a 0 net effect on the budget. These are all site requests where site administration is asking for a transfer between major object code 4, which is books and supplies, and major object code 5, which is services and other operating expenses. You will notice that I left you a second page on top of your table when you came back. The reason was there was a clerical error on the back where they carried forward an adjustment from last time. It should have been 0. So that's why you had an extra page there. Thank you.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve this?
Move to approve.
Motion by member Smith, second.
Second.
Second by member Lynn. Okay, is there any discussion about this or questions? Okay, our preferential vote by our student board member votes yes. For the rest of the board, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-0. Okay, item 24 is to approve the opening of a public hearing to discuss the naming of the baseball stadium at Temple City High School. Can I get a motion and a second?
Move to approve, please.
Second.
Okay, move to approve the opening of public hearing. Okay, motion by member Smith and second by member Espinosa at 8:55 p.m. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, would anyone like to speak to this item? Okay, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion by member Smith, second by member Nolenberg. Okay, any questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's closed at 8:56. Okay, that moves us to item 24C, which is to approve the naming of the baseball stadium.
Move to approve. Tim's not working.
Motion, did you want to give a staff report about this?
I'd like to thank the board for giving me names for people to join the committee. You gave me 9 names, 7 people were able to show up within just a few days. Our meeting lasted 32 minutes because it was unanimous what everyone wanted. They shared a lot of very nice information about Mr. Marquardt, and thank you for that.
Okay, so let's go back to the motion.
Move to approve the name and
Okay.
state and smart work.
Okay, motion by member Smith, second by member Espinosa. Any other comments or questions? Okay, we're going to do a roll call vote, so we'll start with our student board member, Samuel.
Yes.
Okay, member Nolenberg,
Yes.
member Lynn,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Member Espinosa,
Yes.
member Smith.
Aye, aye.
And I just wanted to mention to everyone that the ceremony will take place this Saturday at 10 a.m. at Temple City High School. It's open to the public. I understand there's going to be a lot of alumni there, former students and staff, so I think it'll be a very nice event. I want to encourage everyone to be there. Sure.
Mr. Marquardt will be there at 9, so if anyone wants to have a chance to speak with him, he'll be there from 9 to 10 ahead of time, and then the game starts at 10:45.
Okay, great, thank you very much. I'll also mention that Mr. Marquardt, or Coach Marquardt, as I remember him, is going to be the Grand Marshal of the Camellia Festival, so he will be riding in the parade on the 22nd, so that's really nice. Item 25 is to approve the bleachers for the baseball and softball. Mary Ann, would you like to say anything about this? Or Kim?
The Ramrodder organization would like to pay for additional bleachers at the baseball field. They'll be 10 rows high by 21 feet in length, and that will add an additional 140 seating capacity. While we review this, we have to be thoughtful and mindful about Title IX. So at the same time, we've done a very thorough analysis with SITE and the M&O group where we can add additional bleachers at the softball field. And I think we've come up with every single place we can put one in to add additional seating. So we're bringing those together, asking the board to approve both. The majority of the expense for the baseball field will be covered by the Ramrodders, and then we would be using general fund to support the softball.
Measure S, does it cover that?
Measure S does not.
All right, so can I get a motion and a second to approve the bleachers for baseball and softball?
So moved.
Motion by member Smith, second. Second by member Espinosa. Any questions or comments?
So the bleachers are not really free because of section 8, 9, 10, and 9.
I don't know.
The
Right,
girls,
right.
girls have to be equal, right?
Yes.
So the bleachers, are we just putting in the same number of bleachers for them, or are they already equal, the men and the women? Do we have to make them equal?
It's not technically equal, it's parity. So we look at the number of male athletes versus the number of female athletes in a particular sport, and then we're looking for parity. We're very close with these numbers, and after everything's installed, we'll look again and see if there's anywhere else we can add more bleachers to softball.
And that's
Right now, we can add the number of the number that they're adding to the boys softball.
It won't be equivalent, but we're looking for parity based on the number of athletes in each sport.
And as I understand it, you were planning on adding more bleachers to the softball anyways before the second.
We absolutely were. We needed to wait until they were completed with all the construction at softball. That there was already a plan to add more. We're just trying to bring them, together at the same time.
So we adding the bleachers to the softball, which is the girls.
And we're asking for your approval to do both.
To add to the girls team and on plus whatever they add to the boys.
Yes.
Okay, can I get a motion?
You made the motion.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. We already have a motion and a second, so, yeah, we're ready to vote. Samuel?
Yes.
We have a yes from Samuel. And the rest of the board, all in favor by signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-0. Next is item 26, discuss and approve reduction of facility use fees from TCHS Ramrodders. And you know what, I have two requests from people who wanted to speak but had to go, I'm assuming they had to go to the basketball game. So let me read what they had to say. One was from John, I think it's Takemura. I've been a member of the Ramrodder Booster Club since it was reborn 4 years ago as an all-sports booster club at TCHS. We struggled at first gaining traction and support, but the past 2 years we have grown with a more focused mission to help all sports grow and thrive in representing our city with pride. Fundraising is necessary, and the Booster Club has supported efforts that benefit multiple sports. It becomes frustrating to work hard to raise dollars that go back to the sports programs and having to overcome facility use charges. We are asking that the nonprofit organizations such as ours be exempt from these charges to allow the effort of volunteers to go towards the school programs in whole. The group was successful in 2019 in awarding several scholarships to student athletes and hope to award more in years to come. The money raised goes directly back to the sports programs and athletes. Okay, and then I also have one from Christine Shi, and she says, "Good evening to you all. My name is Christina Shi. I'm currently volunteering as a committee chair of the Ramrodder Booster Club, which provides sports and advocacy for Temple City High School athletes. The Ramrodder Booster Club was formed 4 years ago as a 501c3 nonprofit organization. I am a parent of 2 students who play in several of the high school sports teams. My daughter was able to be in the golf girls team last season, and this past season girls soccer team. My son was in cross country, just finished boys soccer season, and now in boys golf team. I'm so happy that my children got to participate in not only an athletic program, but an excellent one with dedicated and dynamic coaches. We at Ramrodders want to recognize these wonderful student athletes as well as coaches. This can only be done through fundraising. The reason why I'm here tonight is to speak on all the other Ramroder board members and chair's behalf. Many could not make it because of the basketball game tonight. And echo what Teresa Wong, our president, respectfully requested at the last board meeting here. Please rescind the fee issued to our booster club as a facility rental and custodial fee of over $300 for our flea market, which was a fundraising event that gives back to each participating team 100% of the profits. Thank you. Okay. So, does staff have any report they want to give on this, or?
So because this came up in a past board meeting, the invoice has not been sent yet, waiting for guidance from the board. The way it's broken down is the actual cost to the district is $188.40 to cover the custodians because it's overtime on the weekend. And then the other costs are $8 an hour for the restrooms and $10.77 for rental fee for the parking lot based on the current board approved pricing schedule.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion and a second?
I'll motion
What
Motion.
to exempt the Ramrodders from having to pay the fee.
Does the school recognize?
Hold on, we're okay. I'm sorry, Melissa, could you please say that again?
I motion to exempt the Ramrodders from having to pay facility use fees.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
A second. Okay, so we have a motion by member Espinoza, a second by member Smith. All right, yes, sir.
Yes, does the school recognize the Ramblers? Have they put all the paperwork in place for doing this? For raising money on their, I guess, our banner, I guess?
So the school does recognize Ramrodders as a booster group and affiliate with their athletic program. According to our board policies, we should be following a policy where the booster clubs have an annual application to the board that the board approves. That has not happened, but the school does recognize and work with Ramrodders. It will be the direction of the board as to how you want to proceed with the application process for the booster clubs moving forward.
So before they get the money, we can ask the all the paperwork or whatever that goes to the board, the board ratifies.
Can I just make a comment? Because I think that because we haven't been requiring this of all of the boosters, it's a process for all of them for us to even get to that point. So I don't think it should be a requirement, or it shouldn't be contingent upon us exempting them from this fee.
For the board, we only received that change as a first reading. We haven't approved anything yet.
And I will also add that the school was the one that started this group. It used to be a football booster group, and the school requested that it be an all sports group, and so that's when it was reborn.
I'd like to ask a question. Thank you, Mr. Sanchez, for getting up and speaking of the questions I was going to ask in terms of the custodians and whatnot. But so on the weekend, we have also people on call. Do we really incur the expense of having a janitor come out and unlock the gate, or is that something the on-call person can do? I mean, is there really a cost to the district in that regard?
I'm going to answer a couple different pieces
Okay.
within your question. We absolutely have someone on call that's part of the maintenance operations contract, and that person's paid for 2 hours each weekend to carry the radio and be on call. If they come in and they work 2 hours, there's absolutely no additional. If they work more hours, they would get paid for however many hours they actually work. The M&O group that's on call is a different group than the custodial group that comes into the sites to open and close. We could certainly look at that if we wanted to have the on-call folks cover that. We could absolutely look at that.
Do you have something else you
Well,
wanted to say?
So I guess really where I'm going with this is I'm interested in only charging these organizations a fee if there's really an increased cost to the district. And I'm not sure if there really is. And with regard to field maintenance, I understand that issue, but I can tell you, because I had 3 kids that went through both the programs, and nobody cares more about the condition of those fields and maintaining them than the kids and adults who organize the sports and play on it. And there's a lot of elbow grease that goes into that. It's all volunteer.
I guess from my viewpoint too, I think in the case of the Ramrodder event, it was a rummage sale out in the parking lot. I don't really know that it even required any custodial fees or, they could have checked out a key to use the restrooms out on the football field and then returned it. So I think we could have gotten by without having any expense to the district, and they could have had their fundraising event and kept all the money. So that's a direction I'm hoping we go in the future. Any other questions or comments? All right, we'll take a vote on that. First, our student board member.
Yes.
Yes, okay, and the rest of the board, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion is approved, 5-0. Item 27 is discuss and approve reduction of facility use fees from Temple City AYSO.
Move to approve reduction in fees, same as we just did.
Second.
A motion by member Smith, second by member Espinosa. Okay, yes, are any questions or comments? Okay. Yes, did you want to say something?
So at the last board meeting, one of the folks that spoke talked about the fees being $25,000 for AYSO. I'm sorry, $23,910. That amount sounded very large to me. So I went back to the staff member that prepares all these pricing estimates, and she reviewed it, and she had made an error that she found back in December. So on December 11th, she called Dave and told him that she had made an error, and the actual cost was $12,118. That's huge.
That's still, yeah. I would suggest I would suggest in the future that she make a note of that on here, that she made the call and told him the price was different. Because I have a feeling some people have been stressing out over this, even though 12,000 is still a lot too. Any other comments or questions?
I have one question. The prior presentation about the 3 main categories of usage fees, and then there was a 4th category now. Now, the AYSO organization will fall under group 2, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a risk that we set a precedence if this were to pass that will apply to all Group 2 organizations? What I mean is, if we approve AYSO, if we approve this motion, do we set a precedence where the board is going to be locked in to have all Group 2 organizations enjoy the same benefits?
It's a good point, and I think it's something we should discuss, but at the same time, we're not asking for, I don't think the motion was to exempt them from paying, it's just to reduce it. Was that the motion? Well, to reduce it in some way? To the actual cost?
Well, you made the motion on
The other one was,
prior
yeah,
So
that
I
one.
made the same motion for this.
You made the same motion,
Yeah,
okay.
cost, but-
I guess the way I would look at it is we're going to be getting the new fee study coming to us, and at that time, we'll make the determination who's in what category and what fees they should pay under what circumstances.
Table this then until that fees come?
No, because they're already using it, and so we need to make a decision now.
Yes,
So
it
they-
is.
That's fair.
Then is the motion from Matt a temporary exemption?
This
Yes.
application.
That would be true because the new fee schedule isn't in force yet, it hasn't been created. And once that does, I would think that would take over, but that'll be after the season's over.
So we could then, in the future, have another agendized item, make a motion then.
And when we do, and then when they apply, they'll fit into category 2 or whatever.
Do we need to revise that motion that you made, just so that we have that clarity? Like a temporary, you know?
If we do, we'll have to, I mean, we already approved the motion on the prior category with Teresa Wong.
No, the other ones, I had the same question. I decided not to ask the question because for booster clubs, they do provide a direct benefit to our students. That's why they're entitled to group 1. Group 2, this is where the potential is that we cannot foresee what the future is in terms of other organizations that will come and say, look, we do the same thing, and it is not fair that you give one organization a group 2 category this benefit, but we don't get it.
Well, right now, there is no group 1, 2, 3. There's only one fee that applies to everybody, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so, in the future, we will.
I'm willing to waive the fees for this year for all of them,
temporary.
after we put them through the heart conditioning.
All right, any more comments or questions? Okay, it's a waive. Yes, okay, so Samuel?
Yes.
Okay, Samuel's a yes, and for the rest of the board, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. Next is the consent calendar, and the consent calendar is routine items approved by one motion and one vote unless a member of the board or audience requests that any items be reviewed and voted upon separately. So,
I did have a couple that I asked about, but I didn't get a response, so I'm gonna ask about them, so I'll have to.
which numbers are those?
Item 28, there's just a couple minor typos that I wanted to.
I fixed those and they're revised online.
Okay, great.
So if you look online, it's already revised and one was just taken off, the other one's highlighted and it's revised.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm good with 28. And then the other one was 29. I had a question about two contract numbers from the contract section. Page 1 of that contract section has a contract number TC 190179. I did not write who the contract is for, but it was an increase from 30 to 60,000. And I just wanted to know what was the increase and what's the nature of this vendor.
What's the name of the vendor?
I didn't record the name. It's on page 1, TC 19179.
It was previously First Capital Consulting, and they changed their name to Tcusd. This group provides services for the personnel department in ACA tracking. ACA is the Affordable Care Act, which used to be called Obamacare. And so they do tracking monthly for the personnel department to make sure we stay in compliance, that benefits are offered to folks on time. That's the function that they provide. And there was an underestimate of the cost for the year. So this is bringing it, correcting that out.
Okay, great. And then the second one is on page 2. It's this vendor I did write down. It's the law firm AALR&R, TC 190-218. It was at 50, I believe, and was it being increased by 100,000? So I just wanted to.
One increase, just not to exceed.
It was starting at 50 and increased by 100,000. So I just wanted to know if there was specific cases or things that required us to increase this by that much. Just wondering.
So this is for Atkinson Andelson, and you are correct that it's a not to exceed increase. We're putting together a schedule of detail for the board and for the superintendent to explain what the expenses are related to. We'll bring that forward shortly.
Okay, anything else? All right, can I get a motion and a second?
Move to approve.
Motion by member Smith to approve the consent calendar, second by member Lynn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. Are there any board requests or comments? Yes.
I'd just like to see kind of a schedule of what's going to happen in the next 4 or 5 meetings before we change. So sooner or later, with all these things that are proposed, we're going to set a set of rules. Right? We as a board have to set a set of rules. I just like to see when that's going to happen.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah, I have something. Julio's still here. He did a great presentation earlier.
Thank you, sir.
On behalf of AYSO, you mentioned that you charge $100 per kid. You have 100 kids, so about $10,000. Since we waived it this time, I don't know if I could request that he makes a presentation in the future as to how he's gonna keep that money or disperse that money, the $10,000.
Thank you.
Actually, Julio, he's a coach, right?
Yeah, I'm a
I think
division coach.
Albert, who was here earlier, is
He's
the
the commissioner.
commissioner, so that would probably be who we need to make the request.
Yeah.
Thank you. I only know because he coached my son. So.
Been doing it for 26 years.
Yep. Okay, anything else from the board? Any future agenda items?
Sorry.
Okay, that brings us to additional public comments. Anyone have a comment they'd like to make? Jerry?
Can I sit right here?
Sure.
Should I assume that there's not going to be every 15-minute program this year?
We looked into authorizing every 15-minute program this year, and so since we're doing the March 16th active shooter drill, that's pulling on our emergency responders to do that, and then we will authorize that the following year, and we'll try to flip-flop. But we didn't forget.
Anything else? Oh, yes.
I was just speak on.
Could you come up to the microphone, please, so it helps Marie when she does the minutes so she can hear.
I'd like to speak on the request we made for Cloverleaf to have their fees waived.
That wasn't on the agenda, so
Okay.
that's not something we can act on.
So it needs to be added to the agenda and then.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I'll suggest for the next meeting, we're taking requests for future agenda items. I'll suggest that one.
Okay.
Put on the next meeting.
Okay. So our president doesn't need to submit it then as a request or?
You know what, he doesn't need to, but if
Wouldn't
he'd
hurt.
like to, yeah, it would be
Okay.
nice if he would.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And there's one more item. Earlier, Dr. Fricker mentioned that, we're talking about the high school hosting an active shooting scenario, a drill, right? More recently, there was an article about Palos Verdes, and they made the news. And the national, I think, is it NEA or National Teachers Association got involved. I don't know what the feel is with TCEA and their feel about a drill like that here.
Right.
Even though we're local, and then there's a national narrative happening with that type of drills.
I can ask and then report back. Sure.
Okay. Anything else? Can I get a motion to adjourn at 9:23?
I'd like to move that we adjourn the meeting in memory of Claire Marquardt.
Thank you, Member. Second by Member Nolenberg. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Good night, everyone.
We got very far.
So this is trash?
Yeah, there's a trash can back there. I was just saving seats.